Before I get into the details of these messages, I need to know from Ryan. Hey Ryan, when did you and Gypsy officially call it a relationship? Because I can find online that you sent her a letter in May of 2020 and y'all met for the first time in July of 2021. And here's the reason I ask. I'm just curious if there's some overlap in y'all's relationship with these messages. Because in July of 2021, on the 26th through the 28th, Gypsy and this guy were sending messages back and forth. And she refers to him as the muscle man. And in one of her messages that she sends to him, she says, "It's probably a good thing that you were across the pond. My schmex drive and your muscles would be a wild combo." And this guy responds back and he just completely ignores that comment. And so she sends back another message and she's like, "Sorry about the email and it was frisky. I was just corny." Anyways, he responds and he was like, "Better keep up my muscles. It's okay. Say what you want." Anyways, he then goes on to say how her friend had posted pictures of their visit. And again, we can find online that that was when your first visit was. So I'm curious if those are pictures of you. But I'm also curious, were y'all dating then and she was playing you? I mean, all of us kind of assume that. But is this confirmation?
Gypsy Rose was in prison talking to another man in August of 2023 while she was married to Ryan. You can zoom in and see that these emails are Gypsy Rose's. It was these I was really interested in. You can actually go over to YT, look up Into the Weeds, and they had this all on live, reading it out last night. This man is calling her goddess and telling him he's a good submissive, how he can't wait to send his dom her gift each week. He was sending her money. Isn't it crazy as hell how every time Gypsy Rose tries to do something against Nick to make him look worse, something new comes out about her? That woman was in prison talking to men about being doms and submissives. Gypsy's asking him to send her photos of him. So it's so weird you would post Nicholas's emails where he's playing his alter egos, and you are still very much doing it in prison as well.
It turns out the fairy tale redemption arc Gypsy Rose tried to sell the world is starting to fall apart. And this time, the truth is coming straight from her own prison inbox. A batch of private JPay messages she sent while behind bars has been made public. And let's just say, it's not a good look. These leaked emails paint a very different picture of Gypsy's time in prison, one where manipulation, deceit, and emotional games were still in full swing. While she spent the last few months building up a glossy public image and doing the daytime TV circuit, these messages suggest she was still pulling strings from the inside. And here's where it gets messier. She openly talked about how she was never physically attracted to Ryan, saying she stayed with him purely for comfort. Meanwhile, she was allegedly calling Ken her true love, even while still locked in that marriage. And that's not even scratching the surface. Gypsy's father, Rod, was also wrapped up in some drama of his own, carrying on affairs with women from Facebook while married to Kristy. Gypsy not only knew about it, she joked about it, even nicknaming him Pimp Juice. Some of these women were fans of hers, fully aware they were talking to Gypsy's dad. One of them, apparently a dominant figure in their exchanges, was sending Gypsy $50 every week until she found out Gypsy was married and cut things off completely. Throughout all this, Gypsy was corresponding with multiple pen pals, weaving emotional connections left and right while still with Ryan. And when you dig through these messages, it's clear she always had Ken in the back of her mind, treating him like her one true love.
Has anybody checked on Rod Blanchard this morning? Because a Freedom of Information Act has been filed and Gypsy Rose's JPay messages that she sent in prison and that she received have officially started to come out. And those messages are showing us who Gypsy truly is. And the reason I ask how Kristy is doing is because it has just come out that Ron is a serial cheater. But not just that. He basically said he loves Kristy, although she's lazy, but he knew that whenever they got together. His biggest problem is he's not currently attracted to her because of the weight she gained, and that's just an icky fucking comment. But Gypsy's response was basically I don't care if you're cheating, Dad, as long as it makes you happy. But I want you to know that Kristy has the password for your Facebook and she checks it. And that's why a lot of people get a divorce. Baby, your daddy was cheating. That's why people get divorced. That's why people check Facebook accounts, is because people are cheating. They're not getting a divorce because of Facebook. They would be getting a divorce because of the cheating. Anyways, the other information that I've gotten to so far is that Gypsy had pay pigs, and Ryan knew about it.
Now, whether or not you believe in second chances, it's hard to ignore the fact that these emails show a very different Gypsy, one who was fully aware of what she was doing. Some people argue this is a violation of her privacy, and to be fair, that's a valid point. But let's not forget, she's done her own share of exposing others, like when she publicly leaked messages from Nick Godejohn. So when her own dirty laundry gets aired out, it's hard not to see this as a full circle moment. At the end of the day, Gypsy's carefully crafted public persona is being picked apart, and it's happening fast. Thanks to a Freedom of Information Act request, the truth behind those prison walls is now out in the open, and it's a whole lot darker than most people expected.
Gypsy Rose has uploaded a bunch of screenshots that are supposed to be Nick's emails that he sent through JPEG to his other girlfriend or ex-girlfriend. And she did this for a reason. If you read the caption on that video, she says that this is her way of showing that he uses emotional intimacy to manipulate people. And that's how he manipulated her in order for him to off Dee Dee, I think is what she's trying to correlate there. But I don't think that she's understanding that she's the one who benefited in the situation. So the person being manipulated isn't the person that benefits. But while we are talking about emotional intimacy being used to benefit a person, let's talk about the fact that she has done this to Ryan. She emotionally manipulated him so that, one, she could come out of prison with a husband and have a place to stay. But as soon as Ken showed back up, she was like, "Peace, homie," and ran away. And she continues to emotionally manipulate her ex by still reaching out to him to get attention because it's what she benefits from it. Long story short, Gypsy, you drew attention to what you do, actually. Because again, it is you that emotionally manipulates people.
The emails were read live on the YouTube channel Into the Weeds podcast, where hosts went through the raw, unfiltered exchanges in real time. And although names were redacted, the messages made it painfully clear who was involved. What emerged wasn't just embarrassing, it was revealing. Emotional manipulation, psychological games, and even financial exploitation were all part of the picture. If anyone believed she transformed while serving time, these messages might just change your mind. And hey, if your exes ever dig through your old emails, let's hope you're not out here calling your dad pimp juice. Stick around to see what else came to light. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the rest of this deep dive.
Gypsy's daddy needs to come to the front because I have questions. Gypsy's prison emails between her and her dad have been released, and there's one particular that caught my attention. It's one from Rod to Gypsy about Dee Dee. And in it he says, "Your mom loved you like no other. You will never find somebody that loves you more." And he thought maybe Gypsy's mom did what she did because she was scared that Gypsy would love Rod more than Gypsy loved Dee Dee. But more importantly, he makes the comment that had Gypsy's mom allowed her to date, maybe what happened to her mom would have never happened. Which is interesting and wildly confusing because I thought that Gypsy did what she did to her mom because she was abused, not because her mom wouldn't let her date somebody. I'm going to continue through these and let y'all know what's going on, but that was still a very interesting comment. What do y'all think about that? Do you think that he just outed that Gypsy did this because she wanted some D?
Let's start digging through these emails, working from the most recent and peeling back the layers one message at a time to really understand how deep Gypsy's manipulation ran. One of the most disturbing chains began with an email simply titled, "Goddess." In it, Gypsy wasn't just corresponding with a fan. She was engaging with someone who quite literally worshipped her. This fan, likely an older woman, didn't treat Gypsy like a pen pal or even a celebrity. She viewed her as a divine figure. She called her goddess repeatedly, wrote in reverent tones, and even referred to herself as Gypsy's obedient servant. What's more unsettling is how Gypsy handled it. Instead of drawing boundaries or shutting it down, she played along. Hard. She directed the woman to send her $50 every Friday so she could cover her weekend cravings. And when that wasn't enough, Gypsy asked for another $30 to rent movies on her prison tablet. This wasn't just a casual fan interaction. The tone of the messages quickly shifted into something eerily submissive, with the woman gushing about how excited she was to please her goddess each week and counting down the days until she could send more money. And Gypsy, she thanked her, updated her on her plans, told her she was about to hang out with her besties, and casually mentioned watching Dungeons & Dragons later that night on her tablet, thanks, of course, to the money just sent. The tone of this entire exchange is hard to ignore. Gypsy's fan would send enthusiastic updates about their day, apologize for missing messages, and express genuine joy over being referred to as a servant. At one point, she even said she hoped to be the best servant Gypsy owned.
Oh my. Do y'all remember how in this show, Ken and Kristy said that whenever Ken broke up with Gypsy and stopped responding to her, that it was because he wanted her to find herself? Well, the released emails tell a different story. In one of those emails, Gypsy says that it has been confirmed by Ken that he had moved on and started a new relationship, and that's why he wasn't responding to her anymore. It's also noted that this email was sent while she was with Ryan. She goes on in another email to say that half of her really wants to be with Ryan because emotionally he is everything she's always wished for. But then she backtracks and says, you know how my dad always has people in his inbox and he gets tempted? Well, whenever people fall into my inbox, I get tempted too. And so I'm curious, will he be enough for me to keep me faithful? She also refers to her dad as pimp juice, which I don't even know how I feel about that.
Gypsy, for her part, kept the conversation going, offering small updates, giving compliments, and continuing to ask for money in a way that felt calculated and transactional. She even let the woman know that her Facebook page had been remade and asked her to go like it again, treating her like a loyal follower who needed to be kept in line with updates and instructions. The whole thing reads more like a master-slave dynamic than a fan-prisoner connection. And while it's easy to feel sympathy for someone in prison trying to get by, it's a lot harder to ignore how easily Gypsy seemed to exploit admiration for financial gain. If someone's calling you a goddess and begging to send money just to feel seen, and your first response is, thanks, can you send $30 more for movies? That says a lot. And let's be honest, if you've got people writing, thank you for letting me send you money, while you're sitting in prison watching Dungeons & Dragons, you've got more influence than most people on the outside.
If you've been a longtime follower of the Gypsy content, you will definitely know who I'm talking about. But there was a girl on here that served time with Gypsy and was making videos, and her name was Rachel. Well, it seems that Rachel and Gypsy had got together and communicated about stuff and had this idea to do a podcast. But in true Gypsy fashion, she made it about her, basically saying nobody would be interested except for the fact that Gypsy would be one of the talents. And she sends a lot of messages to this girl asking how many followers do I have now? How many likes do I have? She was literally only interested in the fame. And whenever Rachel got sucked into the fame as well, Gypsy got mad and told Rachel she wasn't in it because she was a friend of Gypsy's. She was in it because she only seen her as famous Gypsy. And then after chewing her a new one, she proceeded to go in and ask again, how many likes do I have? How many followers do I have? All of Gypsy's likes and followers are just a number for her. They don't mean anything more. Gypsy wanted to be famous.
Here's where things take an even darker turn. In one of her emails, Gypsy asked this woman, who already treated her like royalty, if she'd be willing to send her $50 a week on any day she preferred. Gypsy framed it as a matter of pride, saying she hated asking for help and felt uncomfortable admitting she needed to be taken care of. But the irony is, she was still asking, just with a guilt cushion. She added a cheerful, "Hope to hear from you soon," at the end, like she was casually requesting a favor from a close friend instead of emotionally priming someone to bankroll her weekends. The woman responded almost immediately. "Hi, Goddess Gypsy," she wrote. "I sent $50, and I hope this pleases my goddess." She gushed over Gypsy's beauty, said she'd been watching her on TV for years, and admitted she'd been praying nonstop for a reply. Her message read like a love letter wrapped in religious reverence, calling herself Gypsy's obedient servant and signing off with full emotional devotion. She mentioned how much she loved the movie 65, like they were sharing a life together, even though this was clearly a one-way fantasy. And here's the thing. The emails aren't in chronological order, which makes the whole exchange even more disorienting. They're grouped by sender, but out of sequence. And that confusion actually reflects how twisted the dynamic had become. These weren't just fan letters anymore. These were obsessive, emotionally charged declarations from someone deeply vulnerable. And Gypsy leaned into it. Instead of setting boundaries or gently turning the woman away, Gypsy played into the fantasy. She kept the compliments flowing, made herself the center of this woman's world, and quietly fueled the obsession with just enough interaction to keep the money coming. It's not just manipulative, it's calculated.
The more that comes out about these messages that Gypsy sent to people while in prison, the more I feel like she owes a public apology to her ex-husband, Ryan. There have been quite a few emails at this point where she says what a great person Ryan is, that he would make a great family man and he's emotionally safe in all this. But she says things like she's not in love with him. She loves him, but she's not in love with him. But it's worse than that. In an email from her dad, he says how he started talking to the cookie lady again, and Gypsy responds and says, hey, I recently had to stop talking to Ken again because I realized that I was taking Ryan for granted. But full-on admits to cheating on Ryan. And she advises her dad to not get caught up in regards to him cheating. So yeah, not only was she playing Ryan, but she knew her dad was playing Kristy, and she was just don't get caught. It's disgusting. And at this point, I'm waiting on a booking for Ryan as well as Kristy, because if I was them, listen, I would team up and go handle some shit, okay? But I'm crazy, so I'm not giving you advice. And if I was, don't take my advice.
What makes this worse is the woman's profile. She was 59, married, and a grandmother, but her emails read like they came from someone clinging to a fantasy life. She sounded emotionally unstable, like she was desperately looking for someone, anyone, to validate her existence. And Gypsy saw that. She didn't ignore it or gently back away. She used it. When the woman missed a payment due to a crisis involving her grandson, Gypsy didn't show sympathy. She didn't even ask if everything was okay. Instead, she shot back a cold message asking why the payment hadn't been made, and followed it up with a chilling line. "You don't get to walk away from your goddess." That wasn't just manipulative. That was emotional blackmail, designed to make the woman feel like she was failing a divine duty. And it worked. The woman apologized, sent the money anyway, and even thanked Gypsy for still allowing her to be a servant. That's not love. That's not generosity. That's exploitation dressed up as loyalty. And this wasn't a one-time slip. It became a cycle. Gypsy kept requesting money, and the woman kept sending it, clinging to every response like it was a lifeline. Gypsy didn't offer anything real in return. No friendship, no honesty, just a breadcrumb trail of attention. This wasn't a harmless prison hustle. It was a full-blown case of financial domination. The same manipulative tactics she once used on Nick Godejohn were now being played out in a new context, with a new victim. The only difference was the name. And maybe the platform. And here's the most disturbing part. All of this happened just months before Gypsy's release. While the world was preparing to welcome her back with open arms, she was still playing puppet master from behind a screen.
Gypsy Rose got a violation while in prison for the content that she was sending out in her emails. And a lot of y'all have asked, how has she not gotten in trouble for the things that she was saying? And the answer is simple. A lot of the times they don't check every single email. It's more like a lottery system. They may check it, they may not. But on June 10th, she got written up for what was in her emails. Here's what her violation says. On the above date and approximate time, while processing outgoing censored emails, it was discovered that offender Blanchard Gypsy, inmate number 1302048, was attempting to email or mail out sexually explicit emails. This places offender Blanchard in violation of Rule 41.1, Procedures and Rules. Emails attached for documentation. It also says that this is not her first offense because she was warned about this in January. And here's her response to that whenever she was interviewed. She said, I was very vague. I didn't say the D word. I didn't say PUSSY or anything like that. It was very clean. I was not explicit. So in true Gypsy fashion, she basically said, I read the rules. I didn't like the rules, so I tried to skate around the rules. So yes, Gypsy was getting in trouble for this stuff.
This wasn't some naive mistake made in the early, foggy days of her sentence. These messages came from a woman who knew exactly what she was doing. They were recent, intentional, and incredibly calculated. What we're seeing here isn't a reformed Gypsy Rose trying to grow from her past. This is someone still playing the same game, just with new rules. The manipulation didn't stop when she got caught the first time. It evolved. And this time, she didn't need a murder plot to get what she wanted. All it took was a prison tablet and someone emotionally vulnerable enough to worship her. The most disturbing part? She probably believed these emails would never see daylight. And meanwhile, what about Ryan Anderson? Gypsy was already married to him at the time. This man had been there through it all, writing her heartfelt letters, putting money on her books, showering her with emotional support, and believing fully in the version of Gypsy she presented to him. To him, he was her one and only, her future, her anchor. But the reality was very different. While Ryan thought he was the one sharing sweet little moments with her, like those quiet movie nights on her prison tablet, he was far from alone. Unbeknownst to him, Gypsy had created an entirely separate emotional relationship with someone else. This wasn't a harmless pen pal. This was a second financial and emotional lifeline. Another man, totally separate from her marriage, was pouring money into her commissary account week after week, thinking he had a special bond with her. The dates don't lie. In August of 2023, months before her release, Gypsy was still behind bars.
In December of 2021, Gypsy Rose makes a claim that she is still a virgin. Well, kind of still a virgin. And her reasoning for still kind of being a virgin was because her ex did not beat that shit up. Talking about her experience with Nick. And I have a lot of thoughts about that, but honestly, if I go into those, I might puke. So we're just going to keep going. That guy responds and says, like, yeah, I looked into your case, and after I looked into that guy, I wouldn't expect him to know his way around a thing. You know what I mean? He also tells Gypsy that whenever she has her parole hearing coming up, that she can come out and see him if she makes parole, but she needs to remember to show remorse to the board because that's what they want to see, even if she's not truly remorseful. Then her and this guy stop talking for a year and he randomly messages her. And Gypsy responds back and she's like, hey, I got married to my best friend. He's a big guy. And then she puts, I don't mean by muscles, but he has a big heart and all this. But then she goes on to say he's insecure and she thought that it would get better whenever they got married, but it didn't. So she had been contemplating an annulment. And in this same email, she goes on to call her brother's wife batshit controlling when trying to say, like, before you get married, you should really think about it because of what she was currently going through. And personally, as more and more of these emails come out, like, I feel so bad for Ryan. I feel like he should just write a book deal at this point and get his money out of this situation.
But also behind Ryan's back. The emails are unmistakably hers. You can go check the Into the Weeds podcast on YouTube, where they read everything live, name redacted or not. The messages are loaded with lines from the other man calling Gypsy his goddess, referring to himself as her obedient submissive, talking about the gifts he couldn't wait to send her every week. This wasn't subtle. It was full-on roleplay, and Gypsy was leading it. And it just keeps spiraling. She even asked him for photos of himself, deepening the connection and blurring every line between fantasy and manipulation. So while she was publicly shaming Nick Godejohn and releasing his embarrassing prison emails, claiming he was unstable or delusional for playing into alter egos and BDSM fantasies, she was doing the exact same thing on her end, in real time, from the same prison. This is where the hypocrisy hits hard. Gypsy has a habit of tossing stones and then pretending she's not holding any. She wants to look like the misunderstood girl who had no idea what Nick was capable of, while secretly diving headfirst into the same kind of behavior, just with new faces and less risk. But here's the thing. The more she tries to smear Nick and control the narrative, the more dirt surfaces about her own behavior. The timing is uncanny. Every time she tries to discredit Nick with leaked messages or twisted stories, another layer of her truth gets peeled back. And let's not forget, this wasn't a one-off. These live readings are going through hundreds of her emails. Some even hint at deeper messes in her family life, like Rod allegedly cheating on Kristy. It's all coming out now, and it's snowballing fast. The man she was emailing wasn't just some passive admirer. He was completely caught in her web, calling her goddess, begging for instructions, and feeding her ego and commissary at the same time. And Gypsy, she didn't just play along. She orchestrated it, controlled it, and benefited from it, like a master manipulator who never really changed, only adapted. Honestly, if Gypsy wants people to move on and stop digging into her past, the first step might be to stop poking at Nick. Because with every attempt to rewrite history, she's only adding more chapters to the book people are now racing to read.
Some of the messages from whenever Gypsy was in prison between her and Ken have been released, and they are interesting. When Gypsy is not talking sexually to him or trying to pressure him into marrying her, she's talking shit about her friends. So let's get into it. I took notes, so I will be looking down. In July of 2019, she messaged Ken because she wanted to give him insight into her friendship with Dawn, Francesca, and this group she calls the Misfits. She says that she has very little patience for people using her and her past for fame, and she's tired of arguing with them drama queens. She says her week's been stressful, she's done a lot of crying, and she's tired of people saying untrue things and using her for a pretty penny. And she just wants to wake up, like, when will all this end? And she says that they are trying to get under her skin, but she's choosing to ignore it. She goes on to talk about how her friend says that they have an offer from Dr. Oz to fly them out there, and she just doesn't want to hear about it. She says, and I quote, like, bitch, who do you think you are but someone latching yourself onto the story because you are blank's plaything of the month? And then says she should take a number and get in line because there's so many people trying to capitalize off of her fame. She then says that she is going to basically threaten Dawn that if she doesn't leave her and Ken's relationship alone, then she will not leave Dawn's series alone. But if Dawn will make that deal and keep that deal, she'll stay at bay.
There was no heartfelt confession to Ryan, no tearful apology, not even a hint that something was going on behind the scenes, just silence. All the while, Gypsy was skillfully managing multiple relationships from her prison cell, making each person feel like they held a unique, irreplaceable place in her life. What's alarming is how seamlessly she pulled it off. No missteps, no slip-ups, just one woman quietly juggling loyalty, love, and money without any of the pieces crashing down. Ryan was completely in the dark. He truly believed he was the one, her savior, her safe place, the man who saw her beyond the headlines and the horror. But while he was pouring his heart into their relationship, Gypsy was running a quiet operation behind his back.
I did pick out a few little clips from emails that I thought were really interesting to share, because if I almost puked, y'all deserve to almost puke. So grab your barf bag, let's go. In an email sent in 2021, Gypsy describes herself as a curvy petite girl. And she says how she has already bought herself dresses, tops, and outfits of the night. She doesn't call it that, but it's a word that starts with L and you wear it for happy times. Anyways, because she has a new life ahead of her and she needs a new wardrobe. But I thought that was interesting that she wanted to talk about nighttime teddies when talking about her wardrobe. She also says that she's disgusted by women who use people for money. And thankfully, she is a rare breed because she doesn't use others. And here's the good one. Around Easter of 2019, she sent a message to Ken. And in it, she said she could not wait to get home. She says her first Easter home, she's going to wear nothing but pink laced undergarments, bunny ears, and a bunny booty plug with a furry tail just for him. And like, I'm not shaming any kinks. Do what you want to do. It's just really interesting that it seems like their whole relationship is talking trash about other people or talking sexually or her like playing mind games. And Ken also responds to this and he says 2 fingers just isn't enough. I want you all to my tongue and can't stop thinking about it.
She used romance to feel supported, used praise to keep people hooked, and used control to keep the money coming in. two people, two roles, one feeding her ego, the other her commissary account, and both of them trapped in a fantasy she'd built from behind bars. What makes this even more unsettling is the possibility that there might have been more. If she was able to run two emotionally intense, financially loaded relationships without breaking a sweat, how many others could there have been? How many people was she charming at the same time, getting what she needed while wearing the mask of a changed woman? It wasn't just emotional multitasking, it was manipulative multitasking, and Gypsy was operating with the precision of someone who had done this before. Because she had. This is where the pattern gets really clear. Control, power, emotional manipulation. It's the same dynamic we saw years ago with Nick Godejohn, the man Gypsy continues to describe as dangerous and coercive. According to her, Nick forced her into a submissive, dominant relationship that made her uncomfortable and scared. She's built a huge part of her redemption story around being the helpless victim in that situation. But these emails flip that entire narrative on its head. Now, we're seeing Gypsy not as the one being controlled, but as the one in control. In her messages with the older fan, she wasn't just playfully accepting flattery. She was setting the tone, dictating the rules, and creating a very intentional imbalance of power. She told the woman to call her goddess, a title that comes loaded with power, authority, and the expectation of obedience. From there, it only escalated. She told the woman how much money to send, when it should arrive, and used subtle emotional cues to keep her compliant. Praise when she delivered, guilt trips when she didn't. This wasn't a simple exchange between pen pals. This was Gypsy actively building a power dynamic, one where affection was doled out as a reward, and silence was used as punishment. It's textbook manipulation. And it closely mirrors the type of relationship she claimed to be a victim of with Nick. The difference? Now she was the one pulling the strings. The irony here is almost too blatant to ignore. Gypsy went on national platforms to denounce BDSM dynamics, insisting she didn't understand what she was part of with Nick and was emotionally pushed into something she didn't want. But these emails show something different. They reveal a woman not just familiar with that kind of power play, but completely comfortable using it when it suited her. In fact, she may have understood that dynamic more than anyone realized, enough to know how to twist it in her favor, enough to know how to exploit it for money, praise, and control. It's not just hypocrisy, it's calculated, and it changes the way we see everything she said about her past.
In the leaked messages of Gypsy Roses, she says that she doesn't use people, but yes, she does. So let's get into it with proof. In 2023, she had what is known as a pay pig, also known as a findom relationship. In this relationship, this person calls her Goddess Gypsy. And this is Gypsy's response to that person. She says, "You're right, I am a goddess. Do you like being talked to like a loyal admirer? This week is my birthday. Maybe you can shower me with more devotion. LOL." This person's like, "Tell me about yourself." So Gypsy does, and then she says, "You can decide what to send me," but makes it very clear the only thing she can send is money. And this poor lady is so excited. She's, "Thank you, Goddess Gypsy. This is a dream come true." Here's a little more, and this lady tells her, "Goddess Gypsy, I sent $50 for your birthday." And this is where we find out this is a 59-year-old grandmother. And Little Miss, I don't ask for nothing, straight up said, "How do you feel about sending me $50 a week? Or once a week? On any day of your choice." And this old lady is like, "Goddess Gypsy, yes, 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 thank you. I will send you $50. I'm sorry, I can't read these in a serious tone. Anyways, then she asked, "Do you want it Mondays or on Fridays?" And the lady missed paying on a Friday, so Gypsy was quick to send a message, "Where is my loyal servant?" And you know, since that lady's like not locked up and shit, she has a life, and so she tells her that. But she thanks Gypsy for referring to her as her loyal servant.
This wasn't admiration. It wasn't even obsession. The woman on the other end of Gypsy's prison emails felt like it was a privilege just to be noticed, like sending Gypsy money wasn't a favor, but an offering. She described herself as honored to give and blessed to receive a reply. And Gypsy? She didn't shut it down. She welcomed it. She leaned into the control, soaked up the praise, and fully embraced the dynamic. The same power imbalance she once claimed traumatized her when Nick Godejohn was involved was now something she used to her own advantage. She didn't just tolerate it, she thrived in it. This isn't just about manipulation, it calls her entire redemption arc into question. If Gypsy truly believed that being in a dominant, submissive relationship was abusive and harmful when Nick was the one in charge, why would she recreate that exact same structure, only with herself at the top? It makes you wonder if the trauma she described was ever about the structure of the relationship at all, or just the fact that she wasn't the one holding the reins. Because when she is in control, it looks like she enjoys it just fine. Jump ahead to 2021, and things get even murkier. In another email, Gypsy was corresponding with someone who was either involved in helping her with her memoir, likely Michelle or Melissa Moore, someone she clearly trusted. In that message, Gypsy asked them to leave out a particular detail from the book: her father, Rod Blanchard's repeated cheating. Her reasoning? She was worried that if the world knew about his affairs, it would damage their relationship beyond repair. She didn't want to risk him distancing himself from her permanently, so she asked for that part of the story to be buried. But even while she was asking for that discretion, Gypsy didn't hold back her own feelings. She called her father a serial cheater and made it clear she believed his actions were habitual.
And says, "It's the first time you acknowledge me as your servant." It just makes me so excited. And remember how I said Ryan knew? I would like to slightly retract on that. Ryan said he knew that people sent her messages, but not that they sent her money. I did happen to get a screenshot of that, but I did not get where he said he knew about them talking, but not the money. But here's the reason why I said that. In this message, she says, "I have talked to my husband and told him of your kindness, and he questions your motives." And then this person actually responds, and they're like, "I didn't know that you were still married, thought you were getting an annulment, so I'm not going to be sending you money anymore." And that makes Gypsy mad. Little Miss I don't use people, she responds and says, "You don't get to walk away from your goddess. I want my weekly 50. I am still your goddess, and it would please me very much." With all that being said, I would love to give a shout out to the Into the Weeds podcast, because they are the ones that are going live, sharing all of this, and slowly giving us all of the receipts.
And then she said something that felt like a stretch, but also strangely revealing. She blamed herself, not directly, but by connecting the dots in a way that made her the center of the story. According to Gypsy, her rising public profile after the release of her documentary brought a wave of attention to Rod, especially from women who were around her age. These women started messaging him, and in her view, that led to him flirting and ultimately cheating. Somehow, her father's behavior became another consequence of her fame. And then we get into the emails between her and Rod, and they are straight up uncomfortable. For starters, she casually referred to him as pimp juice. That's already weird. But it got worse. In one message, Rod responded to her by talking about quitting smoking. He mentioned gaining weight from it, but reassured her that it was okay because he was still sexy as ever. Now, maybe he thought he was being lighthearted. But let's be honest, if your dad's telling you how sexy he
The JPay messages between Gypsy and her dad just get worse. As if it's not weird enough that she calls him pimp juice. He responded to an email to her at one point, and he was talking about how he had given up smoking. And because of that, he had gained some weight, but it was okay because he was still sexy as ever. If my dad was still alive and he told me he was sexy, it would probably be my 13th reason. Rod also seems to be the pushing factor on making her famous, because he is the one who wanted to reach out to a lot of people, do series and stuff like that. And he pretends to ask her, like, "Are you okay with this?" but doesn't really give her an option. And he sold photos and videos of their family to some Japanese company or show or something for $10,000. And out of that, Gypsy only asked for $800. Because he was saying like they desperately needed the money, which is weird because he has a really good paying job. Oh, and he does message her at one point and ask, "Well, how many boyfriends do you have now, you big floozy?"
feels, that's a memory you spend the rest of your life trying to erase. It's giving trauma. Rod also seems to be the driving force behind Gypsy's chase for the spotlight. He was the one eager to connect with networks, producers, and series developers. He framed it like he was seeking her permission, but his tone made it clear he was going to do it regardless of her answer. He'd ask things like, "Are you okay with this?" but not in a way that suggested she had a real choice. So Now, you have a daughter who's begging her memoir collaborators to hide her dad's cheating to protect their bond, while that same dad is out there turning private family memories into international content for cash. The whole situation reeks of exploitation wrapped in the illusion of closeness. And honestly, if there's anything that ties this entire mess together, it's that everyone seems to be playing a role, managing their own image, protecting their own secrets, and cashing in whenever they can.
Gypsy Rose's emails between her and her dad just prove, baby, she's following his footsteps. All that talking Rod did about Kristy and her weight and how he wasn't attracted to her, that's literally what Gypsy was doing in the emails, talking to other men, possibly other women, telling them things like if it came to being intimate with Ryan or cuddling, she would choose cuddling because of his weight. One of the emails, she's talking to a man and is telling him about how she married Ryan and says he's a big dude and then goes, not muscle. Gypsy Rose even tried to push Ryan into getting Ozempic. Yeah, ain't that some fucked up shit? She talks all that mess on that Tori Spelling podcast about how her mama called her thunder thighs and shit. And she's in prison talking to the man she supposedly loves and is her best friend, telling him he needs to get on Ozempic. When he tells her, hey, it costs too much, I'm just gonna get back on my diet, she says something to him that's kind of ruthless. Tells him it doesn't work. Basically lets the man know, you ain't losing weight fast enough for me. This coming from a girl who was supposedly traumatized from her mother, who talked crap about her body, about her thunder thigh, made fun of her body. Yet Gypsy Rose does the same thing to Ryan. And she follows even farther in her dad's footsteps and decides, I'm going to start talking back with my ex, which in my opinion she was doing way before she got out of prison. That's why she told Ryan when she was still in prison, I had a dream about Ken that I left you. She already knew she was bouncing on Ryan, just like Rod bounced on Dee Dee. From my understanding, Gypsy is her daddy's yes man. Always backs him up, always has his back, even when he's going and doing fuck shit behind his wife's back. Lastly, her calling her father pimp juice. That's disgusting. The fact that you know your dad cheats so much that you gave him the name pimp juice.
Rod wasn't just passively sitting back while Gypsy became a public figure, he was actively steering the ship. According to the emails, he was the one pushing for interviews, media deals, and docuseries opportunities. He'd frame it like Gypsy had a say in the matter, asking her if she was comfortable with everything, but the tone made it obvious that her opinion didn't hold much weight. It wasn't really a conversation, it was a heads up, and his hustle didn't stop there. He reportedly sold old family photos and personal videos to a Japanese media company for a quick $10,000 payday. Out of that, Gypsy didn't ask for much, just $800. Rod told her they were desperate for money, which raised more than a few eyebrows considering he already had a solid, well-paying job. Then came the moment where things took a sharp, personal turn. In a message that wasn't just careless but intentional, Rod reached out and asked Gypsy, "So, how many boyfriends do you have now, you big floozy?" A strange mix of forced humor and awkward judgment that only muddied their already complicated dynamic. But it didn't stop there. In another email, Gypsy dropped a bomb of her own. Rod wasn't just casually cheating on Kristy. He was planning to leave her entirely. The plan? To move to Canada and live with a woman he'd been having a long-term affair with. Gypsy even gave this woman a nickname, the Cookie Lady. If you've seen her name floating around in online Gypsy forums, now you know where it came from. This wasn't gossip Gypsy stumbled into or a moment of emotional venting. It was written clearly and deliberately, meant to be read and understood.
2018, Rod to Gypsy. Absolutely on point, baby. Clear and respectful. I understand 100%. You have to move on, and the media has done very little to advance that goal. I will take care of it from here. I keep having dreams about your real mom. Kind of weird. She's young and attractive, and I wake up sad. I'll never forget her, and I know you won't either. She was a good wife.
I'm sorry, but Rod's sitting there talking about Dee Dee and how beautiful and how attractive she is and how she was a great wife and he'll always miss her. And this is the lady that supposedly abused his daughter for 24 freaking years. He sends this email in 2018, barely 3 years after the murder, and sending it to the daughter that the ex-wife supposedly abused. Like, this is fucking insane. As a mother, I could not fucking imagine something like this supposedly happening to my child and then me emailing that child and talking highly of the person who abused them. I'm sorry, but that's exactly the shit I'm talking about. Y'all know damn well Dee Dee wasn't doing all that crazy shit that Gypsy has claimed. Rod wouldn't have been so quick to be like, oh, she was beautiful, attractive, I miss her, she was a great wife. It's like Gypsy wouldn't all the time be like, he was my best friend. And this is wild, right? The fact y'all bring up media, how Gypsy is wanting to move forward and the media is not letting her, is the biggest crock of BS I've ever heard. And let's be real, the minute she got out, she hit every damn media outlet she could, gave them an interview, started a new show, all that. So it ain't the media, friend. She can't let go of her past because she hasn't been truthful about it. Our past tends to eat us up, fill us with guilt, resentment, anger, especially when we're having to lie about it. Considering Gypsy Rose made this whole lie into her moneymaker, she knew she was going to be in the media for a while anyway.
And now that these emails are out, that deeply private betrayal is playing out in public. Kristy may never have fully known what Rod was planning, but now she, along with everyone else, is learning about it through Gypsy's prison emails. What should have remained a private heartbreak has become part of a public unraveling, and Gypsy is at the center of it. In that moment, Gypsy flipped a switch. One minute she's carefully guarding family secrets, the next she's casually revealing life-altering betrayals. She turned from protector to exposer without hesitation. If something in her story no longer served her, or if a little emotional leverage was needed, she didn't hesitate to put someone else's truth on display. She didn't just out Rod for who he really is. She showed the world how easily she could use personal information like ammunition. And it didn't stop at telling the truth. She actively encouraged the bad behavior. In one of her emails from 2019, Gypsy warned Rod that Kristy had been reading his Facebook messages. She told him flat out that Kristy had access to his account and was monitoring his conversations. Now, you'd think maybe Gypsy would stay neutral or encourage some honesty. But no. Instead, she took Rod's side. Hard. She brushed off what Kristy was doing and actually told Rod to keep cheating. Just be more sneaky about it next time. Her logic, it wasn't the betrayal that caused relationships to fall apart. It was getting caught. She literally wrote, "Snooping causes divorces," as if the real issue wasn't that Rod was being unfaithful, but that Kristy had the nerve to find out. That's the kind of logic that flips morality on its head. According to Gypsy, the crime isn't lying. It's discovering the lie. And if you're wondering how Kristy Blanchard is doing today, probably not great. Because thanks to a Freedom of Information Act request, these JPay messages, every word Gypsy wrote and received during her time in prison, are now being published, read, and dissected publicly. All the secrets she once thought were safe behind bars, they're now front and center for everyone to see.
The internet is going crazy over this one. Yeah, so apparently Gypsy Rose's dad, the company he works for, there's all kinds of craziness going on with the family that owns it, I guess. I don't know, I'm not these people. It's all alleged. However, Flawless Nina did post a video talking about it. So let's check it out. Y'all, make sure you hit the little like button over there. Hit that little heart real quick before we get started. Let's check this out.
This money, and this man has gotten away in this company with keeping the money. Y'all, I posted that, and shortly after I posted this, I received an email, and this email blew my wig cap. Look at this. Okay.
Oh, hell no. I'll show you. All right, so here's the email.
Okay, so I believe the name is pronounced Schwest. So this person emailed me and said, "Nina, you have uncovered the Bayou Mafia."
Oh, hell, the what?
The Schwest family is the richest, most powerful family in the Bayou. They cover up more corruption than you can even imagine.
These leaked messages are pulling back the curtain on who Gypsy Rose really is, not who she wants the world to believe she's become. And let's talk about Kristy Blanchard for a second, because if anyone deserves a wellness check after this mess, it's her. Rod's emails didn't just hint at infidelity, they spelled it out in cringeworthy detail. He admitted he still loved Kristy, but tossed in a dig about her being lazy, and then as if that wasn't enough, he blamed his lack of attraction on the weight she'd gained. It was a nasty, shallow remark, and instead of calling him out, Gypsy shrugged it off. Her response? Basically, "As long as it makes you happy, Dad, do whatever you want." But that wasn't the worst part. Gypsy didn't just approve of Rod's cheating. She gave him a heads up that Kristy had access to his Facebook account and was monitoring his messages. Instead of showing loyalty to Kristy, who had confided in her during an incredibly painful time, Gypsy took the information Kristy shared and handed it right to the man betraying her. She didn't stay neutral. She didn't express concern. She picked a side. And she chose the cheater. What makes it even more twisted is how she rationalized it. She told Rod that snooping was the real issue, not the infidelity. According to Gypsy, people don't split because someone cheats. They split because someone finds out. That kind of logic doesn't just protect bad behavior, it rewards it.
Oh, hell, that's crazy.
How do I know? I used to be the head of ethics and compliance for one of their companies, who was also a sponsor of this gala, and their logo is close to the Schwaus.
Oh, Lord.
I also consider one of the Schwaus family members a friend until recently, Dion. She is head of human resources at her family company. She is also an attorney. Her husband was caught, and I mean caught, having relations.
Oh, hell.
With her daughter's underage friends.
Oh, make him burn in hell for
Dion
that.
paid people to not go to the cops. He now lives in the guest house at Dion's house and is basically a Schwest family house guest. I'm so glad I got away from these people. My life is so much better now. She speaks more now here, but there's a button so I can't see it. But she said I could share this, and y'all, talking about blowing your wig cap back. I wasn't ready for that, baby. I was not ready for this.
Oh, hell.
Child, drop your comments down below, because this blew me away. Also,
That is
I would like to say this is all alleged. This is from what someone sent me. I don't know this to be facts, but this person seems genuine, so take it for what it's worth.
Oh, hell. Y'all heard about that family? I have no idea, but that's crazy. Let me know in the comments. Follow for more.
It shows a total lack of empathy for the person being lied to, but Gypsy didn't stop at playing messenger. She got directly involved with the woman Rod was cheating with. Yes, the same woman Kristy had suspected. Gypsy was chatting with her. She was helping her dad manage the affair while also playing nice with Kristy. One day, she'd console Kristy and act like she was shocked by the drama, and the next, she was encouraging Rod to keep things going with the cookie lady. It's the kind of two-faced manipulation you expect from a soap opera villain, not someone who just got out of prison claiming she's changed. In one particularly revealing message dated March 15th, 2019, Gypsy wrote to Rod, "Dad, I need to tell you something, but you have to swear you won't react or tell Mom. And definitely don't tell her I told you, because I'm the only one who knows." She went on to spill all the details about a fight on Valentine's Day, confirmed that Kristy was tracking his Facebook, and casually reassured him that she didn't care if he had side action or not. She even framed the whole situation as a warning to prevent divorce, again pinning the blame on snooping instead of the cheating itself. Rod's response? Pretty much a thank you note. He told her Kristy had always been a snooper and said he'd stopped messaging other women anyway. Then he brought up the cookie lady again, confirming they'd resumed contact via WhatsApp. It was clear that this wasn't some innocent back and forth. They were running a coordinated effort, exchanging information and maintaining the affair behind Kristy's back, with Gypsy playing the middlewoman. This wasn't an emotional outburst or a lapse in judgment. It was a deliberate choice to manipulate both sides of a relationship for personal gain. Gypsy wasn't dragged into this situation. She stepped into it willingly. And why? Maybe it was to secure her father's approval. Maybe it made her feel in control at a time when she had none. But whatever the reason, the betrayal is undeniable. It's a stunning contradiction to the image she's tried to sell since her release. The misunderstood daughter, the rehabilitated woman, the survivor who just wants peace. These messages tell a different story. One of emotional double-crossing, strategic deception, and a willingness to hurt people closest to her if it means preserving her own comfort. Whatever sympathy people once had is starting to wear thin. Because Gypsy's not just rewriting her past, she's actively revising the truth.
Ooh, those prison emails are so messy. This was not on my 2025 bingo card when it came to this one right here. But boy, oh boy, did someone really go out of their way and was like, yeah, let's really see what Gypsy was talking to people about while she was in prison, because she paints this picture, right, to everybody. But let's see really what was going on. So they requested the documents, they paid for these emails, and now they finally have them, which, if you look into it, it is a process to even get them in the first place. So this has been a long game that someone, and we don't know exactly who, has been playing. However, there is a content creator, Into the Woods, over on YouTube, and if you go there every day on a live stream, they are reading through the emails, and it is so messy. If I was Kristy, I would be raging and I would be mortified and embarrassed because for years you got daddy and daughter, her calling him pimp juice, him calling her a floozy, these two talking about all of Rod's side Johns on the side, how she doesn't like Kristy. Ooh, I don't even like her anyways. Go ahead, daddy pimp juice. He's hooking up with the cookie lady. I mean, it is the messiest shit ever.
Some of the messages exchanged between Gypsy and her father were uncomfortable enough to make you stop and reread them just to be sure you saw it right. She called him Boo and Pimp Juice, terms that sound more like flirty nicknames than anything a daughter should ever be calling her dad. Even more unsettling, Rod went along with it, responding in kind like this was normal. This wasn't a one-time joke or an awkward attempt at humor. It was how they regularly spoke to each other. That's what makes it even more disturbing. These weren't sarcastic throwaway lines. This was their pattern. Now, take that dynamic and place it next to a claim Gypsy once made, that Rod had allegedly received inappropriate photos from her. She later insisted those pictures were meant for a friend named Aaliyah, not her father. But once you know the context of how they communicated, it's hard to completely dismiss the discomfort. There's no evidence of physical boundaries being crossed, but the emotional boundaries? Those were practically non-existent. The way they talked to each other was blurry at best, and wildly inappropriate at worst. And Rod's boundary issues weren't just emotional, they were financial too. While Gypsy was still behind bars, he sold off personal pictures and family videos to outside media, interviewers, docuseries producers, whoever was willing to pay. He didn't ask for Gypsy's permission beforehand. He made the deal, signed the release, cashed the check, and only told her after the fact. The deal was reportedly worth $10,000, and Rod's explanation? He couldn't say no to the money. That's not just inconsiderate, it's exploitation. Plain and simple. For years, Rod's been painted as the quiet parent, the one who stayed out of Dee Dee's abuse and only entered the picture when it was safe to do so. But these revelations show a different side. He may not have been injecting Gypsy with unnecessary medications or controlling her every move, but that doesn't mean he was looking out for her best interests. He saw a cash opportunity in her name and her pain, and he took it without blinking. This isn't just disappointing, it changes how people see him.
And the biggest takeaway is they never talked bad on Dee Dee in those emails. How wild. After everything that was done, after all these abuse allegations, all of these things, the only thing her father ever said to her was how much her mother actually loved her and cared about her and took care of her. To which she agrees to this in these emails, and how he was a deadbeat dad and I walked away from you and your mom, and you know, I fucked up. And she was like, "Ooh, dad, let me just tell you something. Like, Kristy knows your password on Facebook. Like, you better be careful. She's going to see all your little side johns and she's going to find out about it." And they have a joint Facebook account like that. Now we know why. But really though, honestly, if I was Kristy and I had to sit back on social media and come across these videos where people are reading out loud the emails between Gypsy and her father, and they are going in on her, talking about how she's like the worst person ever, when in reality, like, Kristy, I'm sorry, like, these two are calling you the fucking worst. Like, I can't. And the whole pay pig thing with a 55-year-old woman for financial domination, right? Like, role playing out with this old woman while you're in prison. Wait a minute, but I also thought, I thought the whole like Dom thing and the role playing thing wasn't really her. It was a Nick thing. That was like his shtick. It wasn't, she just went along with it. She wasn't really into any of that.
Rod might not have been front and center in the Munchausen nightmare, but that doesn't mean he's innocent. His damage is just more discreet, quieter, but still harmful. And while all of this was going on, Gypsy was quietly unraveling emotionally. By late 2021, she was engaged to Ryan Anderson. Publicly, it looked like she was on the path to healing, ready to get married, start fresh, and finally move forward. But behind closed doors, her emails painted a completely different picture. In one message, she poured her heart out about her ex-fiancé, Ken Urker. She missed him, she felt abandoned, she knew he had moved on, and it crushed her. This wasn't the detached, mature perspective she'd shared in interviews, where she claimed their breakup was mutual and healing. She had said Ken wanted to give her space so she could grow. She acted like it was an adult decision between two people who still cared about each other. But in private, she was heartbroken, hurt, and clearly not over him. The emotions in her email were raw. She didn't sound like someone who had found peace. She sounded like someone who was still grieving a relationship she never fully let go of. And that's the hardest part. While she was planning a wedding with Ryan, her heart was still stuck on Ken. She never really made the transition. Emotionally, she was living in two different places. And Ryan may never have known he was sharing her heart with someone else. These messages show the deep contradictions between Gypsy's public statements and her private reality. And once again, the image she tries so hard to project, the one of strength, maturity, and closure, starts to fall apart the second her real words are brought to light.
Right? Or, I mean, and not to mention, she was like, I want all of you to see what Nicholas Godejohn said to someone. Look at these emails. He's a psychopath. He's a piece of shit. Look at him. Look at what he made me do. See, he's the manipulative one. He's the one. And now all this comes out, and it's like, ooh, girl. Like, wait, pump the brakes. It's looking like maybe you're the one who introduced him to everything. All of it. I've seen someone post a video, and they were like, I finally went and did my research on who she is. Because when she got out of prison, I had only ever seen the movies and these little these Lifetime little things, the act, and I supported her. I believed her story. I sent her donations. I sent her live gifts. I got up on the internet and supported her, made videos attacking other people. And then I went and did my research, right? And they're like, I am so disgusted that I ever supported someone like this. I truly did not understand like the long game and the game she's been playing. But it's so obvious when you've seen it from Jump Street. But here we are, bingo 2025. I guess we can check this one off the bingo card.
So, how real was Gypsy's relationship with Ryan really? On the surface, she painted a picture of fresh love, a clean start, and emotional closure. But behind closed doors, she was still holding on to the past. She wasn't healing. She was hanging on. Her heart wasn't moving forward with Ryan. It was stuck, grieving the loss of Ken. That disconnect makes her relationship with Ryan feel less like a new beginning and more like a performance. The public got the polished story, but her emails show a woman still deep in emotional conflict, still torn, still hoping for something else. And that curated image didn't stop with love and heartbreak. In another email, Gypsy casually mentioned drinking wine to celebrate something, then added that her parole didn't restrict alcohol. Which, okay, would be fine if that's what she had actually said publicly, but it wasn't. She went on record claiming her parole forbade her from being around alcohol at all. She said it multiple times. So why lie? Because it was strategic. Gypsy knew that by creating the illusion of breaking her parole, she could spark outrage. She baited the public into reporting her, hoping they'd flood her parole officer with so many bogus claims that any real violations would get lost in the noise. That's not a slip-up. That's a deliberate effort to weaponize her own audience and create a smokescreen of controversy to protect herself. It wasn't about drinking. It was about control. Then, there's her stance on Nick Godejohn. These days, she has no problem calling him a monster. She says he manipulated her, that he deserves to rot in prison, that she never loved him. But once again, her own words from behind bars tell a different story. In one of the most revealing emails, Gypsy said she took the stand hoping to help him. She said she prayed he wouldn't get life without parole, that even though she couldn't save him, she was glad she tried. That's not hatred, that's guilt. And that guilt doesn't line up with her current public image of having zero remorse or emotional ties to Nick. It tells us that deep down, she knows their story isn't as black and white as she wants everyone to believe.
The Gypsy Rose emails are freaking crazy. These emails are between her, Rod, Kristy, Ryan, Ken, everyone. And just wait until you see the way her and her dad talk. She calls him Pimp Juice. And talking to these people that sent her money, like loyal servant. So she was doing role playing in there. And supposedly Ryan knew that she was getting money from these people that wrote her. He says he doesn't know. Who knows? I am currently working on editing where she is talking to a 59-year-old person, role playing financial domination. This person refers to her as goddess, and she refers to this person as her loyal servant. I'm cutting them down to just the reading of the emails, and I will have part 1 and part 2 of Goddess out tomorrow morning. And they reveal a lot of information and great insight into who GRB is and how she spent her time. It will all make sense, believe me, once I post these. They are just disturbing.
And here's where the real problem comes in. The Missouri Parole Board had access to all of this, these emails, this information, but they never read them. They released Gypsy without seeing what she was really up to behind the scenes. They missed the signs that she hadn't changed, that she was still lying, still manipulating, still emotionally using the people around her to get what she wanted. This wasn't a reformed woman being set free. This was someone who got better at hiding it. Take the final message from the woman who had supported Gypsy financially and emotionally throughout her sentence. She reached out one last time after hearing that Gypsy had gotten out. She apologized, said she thought Gypsy had left Ryan, and promised never to contact her again. Gypsy didn't respond with gratitude or closure. She didn't deny the relationship or offer a kind word. She said nothing at all because she already had what she wanted: money, devotion, attention. Now that it no longer served her, she cut the cord without a second thought. These emails were never supposed to see the light of day. But now that they have, the image Gypsy has worked so hard to polish is starting to fall apart. Her victimhood, her redemption arc, her soft-spoken act, it's all looking more and more like a carefully maintained mask. And bit by bit, that mask is slipping. Underneath it is someone who hasn't changed at all. Just someone who learned how to lie better.
He's eating a brownie. But later he will be eating me.
This is the audio from the infamous Days in video that was filmed right after the deletion of Rod Blanchard. Notice how she mentions brownies, and he's eating a brownie, and soon he'll be eating her. Look at what GRB just posted in her stories very recently. This is not cute. It's not funny. It shows GRB has absolutely no remorse to post something like that so closely connected and identifiable to her crime. GRB supporters better take a second look at who they're taking up for, because it surely isn't a changed or a remorseful person.
Thanks for sticking with me all the way to the end. If you made it this far, you're a real one. Make sure to hit that like button if you found this video eye-opening, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Tap the bell so you're always updated, and click on one of the videos on the screen to keep going, because there's a lot more to unpack.